Hey, good evening, and welcome to the Comics Experience Graphic Novel of the Month Club for the month of July 2022. I'm Brian Hibbs, I'm your host, and I welcome you. And we've got a really good book this month. The book is The Peanutbutter Sisters, and our author is right here, and it's RUMI HARA. Hello, RUMI, how are you?
Hi, Brian, I'm good, how are you?
I'm doing excellent, thank you. I want to thank you for joining us and taking the time to spend time with us tonight, and this should be fun, I hope.
Oh, yeah, I'm really excited. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Go, please.
Oh, I love the intro.
Oh, thank you. Awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
We never get enough comments, so I think it's cool, but most people don't say anything. That's great. I'm glad you like it. So the first question I always ask is the same in every one of these, because I like consistency. But I also really like this question, and it's why comics? Of all the ways you could be expressing yourself, of all the art forms you could have chosen, what is it about comics that lights you on fire, that makes you excited, that is your expression?
Well, so I always loved comics. I am originally from Japan, so I grew up with a lot of manga. And anime and whatnot, so it came kind of naturally to start making comics or manga, however you call it. So I was always making comics, and I felt like I had a lot of stories to tell, and yeah, it was just a natural way of telling stories.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's cool, you get to draw and write at the same time, so you never get bored.
Yeah, it's a labor-intensive amount of work, though.
Right.
And generally, we don't all make as much money as we probably should from that amount of work.
But maybe it's kind of like an investment too. One day, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the meantime, I get to have fun and do what I love. So
yeah, no, that's fantastic. That's great. So you grew up in Japan. How long did you live there for?
I lived there well, until I moved to the US like 10 years ago, but I also partly grew up in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, but I was there from age 8 to 10.
Wow.
My mom had to work there. So the South is kind of like my second home.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So what's the first comic that you remember reading that like really stuck with you?
Oh, wow. I remember my dad one day coming back with 3 books of Chibimaruko-chan. I don't know if everyone knows that, but
I don't think I'm familiar.
It's a very popular comic. It's about this little girl and her family and her everyday life, and it's really everyday, but it's just funny because she's silly and all her friends are silly. She's like 9.
Okay.
In 3rd grade.
Okay.
So I remember my dad coming home with that, and I was about 5 or 6, I think. And that might have been the first time I saw like a comic book. So I remember that. Yeah, but I love Rumiko Takahashi.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And yeah, a lot of comic books. Tezuka, of course.
Sure.
What else? Patariro is another great one. I'm not sure if it's translated.
Yeah, again, that one doesn't necessarily ring a bell with me.
That it's really weird. It's about this 10-year-old prince who becomes a king of
Okay.
an island nation.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really weird. So I love that for
Cool.
the weirdness.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. When did you start drawing comics?
I can't really remember like the first time I actually like drew comics. I was very little, I think.
Yeah.
My dad used to bring home scrap paper from work. He had a ton of scrap paper from work. So I didn't really understand what he did, but I thought it was like something to do with paper.
Yeah.
Um uh so I just drew on the back of um just random paper,
Yeah.
random ads too. um Duplex printing didn't exist when I was growing up, I feel like, so you could
Right.
draw on the back of anything.
Right.
Yeah, that was the good old 80s and 90s.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, did you know early on you were gonna make comics, or did you think you were gonna do something else with your life?
No, so I became a translator.
Okay.
I love drawing, but I didn't think it can be a work like
Yeah, sure.
money making
Yeah.
thing. I don't know anybody who does art for a living. Well, I didn't know back then.
Right.
No one in my family is an artist. So it didn't occur to me. I speak English, I speak Japanese, so put that together, and
Hmm.
I was translating. But so I was working in Tokyo. I started going to this illustration school.
Okay.
There, it was like a night school,
Hmm.
and in 2012, I decided to go to an art school in Savannah,
Okay.
Georgia. So I guess that's like the beginning of seriously making comics.
Yeah. So what was your impetus to start so relatively late to go to the school in Savannah? And I'm assuming that's the program at SCAD. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
went to an illustration program at SCAD.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was working, and then in 2011, a huge earthquake hit
Mhm.
northeastern Japan.
Yeah.
And on top of that, well, earthquakes are pretty common in Japan, but there was a nuclear nuke plant
Yep.
meltdown in
Yep.
Fukushima.
Yep.
And so that affected everybody, and it just not just me, but it made everyone think about life, and what how we are living and what we want to do and everything. So I really thought about what I want to do, and I was really enjoying um, learning how to illustrate. I never really took art classes before, so I was just drawing on random, um, just printer paper, and
Yeah. Yeah.
random pens and everything. So yeah, I decided to go to art school, and there I learned about perspective
Uh huh.
and um, all the different things you can use to draw.
Sure. How old were you when you went to Atlanta
I was
to SCAD?
to SCAD I was
Yeah.
30.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great. Actually, I really love that. I mean, I love like finding it later in your life. Especially after, as you say, the situation in Japan. I mean, I think that's kind of fantastic and inspiring, I think.
Yeah, maybe I keep thinking if there wasn't that earthquake, I might have just continued being a translator. I had a
Yeah.
stable job, and I liked it. I liked translating. It was fun, kind of. But not as fun as drawing and making comics.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I made the change.
Oh, that's really neat. That's a neat motivation. I like that. How long of a program were you at SCAD?
Oh, just 2 years.
2 years. Yeah,
It was a master's. It was an MFA
Mhm,
program.
mhm.
So
Was it specifically comics, or was it just illustration in general?
no, just illustration in general. They do have a sequential art department, so
Yeah.
I took classes there too.
Yeah.
But at first I was going to the illustration school in Tokyo, so I thought I'll just do illustration, and I didn't know much about comics in North America. I thought that, well, there's like Marvel and all the superhero comics, and that wasn't what I wanted to do. So that's why I went to study illustration. But I was already making comics in my portfolio for application for SCAD. There were many comic pages in there, but I didn't really know what I was doing.
Okay.
I didn't know what to call it. I was making like one-page comics.
Okay.
And it read from left to right, and usually in manga you read the other way.
Right to left. Yeah.
So everyone in Japan were very confused about what I was making.
Sure.
They were like, well, how do you read this? What? So and I was like, I don't know why I just think from left to right, and that's how I draw. But in America, everyone understands it.
It's how we natively do comics. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I was like, this is great. This is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, and in fact, when I talk to people about setting up pages and how the comics page works, especially when I'm talking to kids, I very often point out that our eye kind of naturally makes a Z pattern, when we're looking at text, left to right, up and down, left and right, so it's I've actually always found it interesting that in Japan it's the other way, but I assume it's because the written language reads that way as well, right?
Yeah, the written language reads top to bottom, right to left.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that manga didn't develop top to bottom, right? Because it's still bottom to top. Sorry, I said that wrong. You just said that you read top to bottom. It is top to bottom, not bottom to top.
You write vertically.
Okay,
not
good. Okay,
horizontally.
All right. So okay, now that makes more sense. Yes.
Yeah. So I think in manga you read top to bottom.
Yes.
I'm a little confused. Yeah.
No, it's. I mean, it's essentially flipped. It's just flipped.
Yeah, it's flipped. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
It's not strictly flipped because in fact the first Japanese comics that started being published in America, they did literally just flip each panel.
Right.
But that made things wrong because characters were using the wrong side of their body. You know what I mean? Because it was literally the flip. Like you can't just flip it. You need to play with it too. So
right. Yeah. So I think it's just my confused languages. Like I grew up in Japan and also the US, so my English is weird. My Japanese is a little weird too, I guess. And so I am Japanese, but I feel more comfortable writing like horizontally left to right. So my comics just happened that way.
Yeah. So, but you said that you hadn't really been exposed to very many American comics other than like the superhero stuff. So I find it kind of interesting that you personally developed your comics that way without that being the influence on you, if you see what I mean. If most of your experience in reading comics was manga, you're used to reading the comics the other way around.
Yeah, I don't know why. um, I can read manga, the right way.
Sure, of course, yeah.
And that's my natural way of reading manga. But for some reason, when I'm the one making it, I just work the other way around.
Yeah, that's very interesting to me. I
yeah,
because I always assumed that those things are a product of one's influences, right? And it's kind of not for you, kind of.
I think so I used to be left-handed, and my mom fixed it apparently. So now I'm right-handed.
Okay.
But my left hand is still a little stronger than my right hand, so I tend to open jars with my left. I don't know, the right and left are very confusing.
Okay.
To me.
I understand. Yeah. Oh, look, to this day, I still, I'm a 55-year-old man, and when I think about what's on the left, I have to go, the driver's on the left. It's the only way I can do it. Someone actually pointed out to me that if you do this, then when you look at it, it's an L, and so that's your left hand. So
I
always
do
think
that
of
all the time.
Yeah. Funny. So you were doing one-page comics in your application for SCAD. When did you start doing longer stories?
When I was in SCAD,
okay.
I took a comics class, so that was really helpful. And it went from like 3-panel comics to like 2-page comics, and then 8 pages, and then a little slowly. I feel like I built up my comics muscles. Yeah.
Okay. And what were those? Were those comics like the ones here?
I think I put a couple of my older comics in the slideshow.
Okay. Do you want me to pull that up now?
Sure. Yeah, we can look at that. I can show
Let's
you
pull up
what it looked like.
We'll pull up the slideshow. All right, there's the cover book. Next.
Oh yeah, so this is
back up in.
This is one of the first prints that I did, actually. So Peanutbutter Sisters started as a printmaking project. So I was still working as a translator. I was in Tokyo, and someone invited me to this printmaking workshop, and we had to bring a design. So this is what I came up with. And I got kind of obsessed with these triplet figures. And on the next slide, please. So I made this 1-page comic about them, and it's like a dance cycle.
Is this the kind of thing that was in your submission to SCAD?
Yes. This might have been in there. So this one I was just drawing with like a micron pen on a printer paper, and then printed on a brown paper at home on my tiny printer. And I brought it to bookstores and asked them if I can just leave them for people to take for free. So yeah, this is what it is. So they were called the Peanutbutter Sisters. I didn't really know who they were just yet, but yeah, this is what I was making.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Let's go to the next one, Ben.
Oh, so these are some photos of islands around Savannah. And it's beautiful. These are all the driftwood on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And I got really inspired by this landscape. Next, please. So yeah, I took a lot of photos. And I used these photos as reference when I was making the story because the Peanutbutter Sisters, they live on an island in coastal Georgia.
Uh-huh.
And they they go to a dumpster and then they collect all these treasures, and they sell them on eBay. So that's how they make a living. But they also travel on riding a hurricane to go up north. That's their way of vacationing. Next, please. Oh, so I made a map of the area too. This is what it looks like. Next.
Very cute. Yes, yeah. Thumbnails.
Yeah, thumbnails finally. In 2019, after like 10 years. So in 2019, I sent an application to Short Run Seattle, the comic festival, and they gave me a Dash grant to make a mini comic. So I finally had the deadline to make this into a story. So so I was like, oh, okay, I have to do this. So I started writing and doing thumbnails. Next. Oh yeah, so this is the thumbnail of that Times Square scene where the Peanutbutter Sisters when they go to Times Square.
That one.
Yeah. Next.
There's actual Times Square.
There's actual Times Square. Again, reference photos. Next. Oh, and then rough sketch.
Okay.
Pencils.
Very good.
And then next, please. So this is the finished.
The ink. I see.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the first one of the three of those, Ben? Okay, so you're already got your lettering in there nice and early. It looks like. In terms of process, you're lettering at the pencil stage.
Yeah. Yes. I want to make sure it fits.
Yeah.
Because I used to not do that and it never fit. So.
And it's staying consistent too. That's okay. That's cool. Next, Ben.
Oh, so this is the cover of the mini comic that I made for Short Run. I was able to finish it.
And how long was it? It was like is it the first, not the first chapter, but there's just one chapter here that. Yeah.
Yes. So so the book is the collection of short stories. So all the stories are different, and this one, I think it's 32 pages.
Wow, 32 pages. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Here's the process of another story, Living Things. So this one went more quickly than the Peanutbutter Sisters. I started brainstorming, and this is what my brainstorming / writing notebook looks like.
Interesting. It's there's almost no sort of direction on the comic itself. It's just notes about the mood and the atmosphere, it appears.
Yeah. So the idea was to set the story in the Mojave Desert. And I read that it was the hottest place on Earth. Technically, because there's like a record keeping technicality. So it would be, I thought it would be interesting if like the car race took place there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
so
it's
yeah,
it's I only say because I wouldn't have necessarily connected this to comics. Do you know? Because it's not you're not usually when people are writing like these kinds of scripts and things, it's here's the scene, here's some lines of dialogue, here's the next scene. Whereas you're giving form to the space, kind of. It's interesting.
yeah. Sometimes I draw a map.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so the
Mm-hmm.
on the left there are like just a bunch of character sketches. I'm trying to figure out what they're wearing, what they look like, and everything. And on the left, there's the itinerary.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Day 1 through day 3.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's the route.
Yeah, interesting.
It changed a lot.
Yeah.
And then after a lot more writing and brainstorming, I start thumbnailing. So finally, there are a lot of drawings
Yeah.
here.
Do you write a formal script, or do you just do it kind of here in the thumbnail stage?
I usually write a formal script.
Okay.
That's really helpful for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Oh, yep, pencil and
Pencils,
then
inks.
inks.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Neat.
Also, I just wanted to show that sometimes I revise the thumbnails.
Okay.
And there's a penis guy in
Yeah.
page
Skip back a
29.
page, will you? Oh,
Oh,
actually,
no,
maybe.
that was, yeah. So
Okay.
I really wanted to include him in the story, but it just got too crowded. So
Mm-hmm.
next page. So this is the actual revised
I
thumbnail.
see. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I took out the penis character, and then
Mm-hmm.
I thought I'll just use him somewhere else. But yeah, next, please. So yeah, this is the finished page 29.
Yeah. That's nice.
Oh, and there are some drawings with color inside the book.
Uh-huh.
So I thought I'll share some process work
Uh-huh.
for a drawing.
Yeah.
It's basically the same. Next, please. So here's the pencils. I do pencils digitally usually.
Okay.
And then next, I think, is the last slide. Yeah, so this is the brainstorming and thumbnailing for the drawings.
Very good. So that's yeah, great. You can take that down now. Thanks, man. Cool. That's nice. So you you're thumbnailing on paper though, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
And it looked, if I was getting that correctly, that you're going through a couple of different iterations of thumbnails as well on some pages.
So sometimes, yeah. But usually, I try to play everything out in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So thumbnailing takes a lot of time, and I'm just usually just staring into space, thinking about it. And when I actually draw the thumbnail, I kind of know what's going on. So it doesn't happen that often that I need to revise the thumbnail.
Good. Let me just pause for half a second and go. If anybody in the audience has any questions, you can certainly feel free to ask. We will get to them. And Ben is nodding that we have someone already. Is that correct? Put it up. Let's see what we got. Pudrigo, hey Pudrigo, we've missed you, guy. You haven't been for the last 2 or 3 shows, man. I'd love to know how the stories in the book were drawn. Was it drawn ink on paper or digital? There's a very textured quality of the line that's very unique.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It is all ink on paper. I use brush and ink. And I use a very textured paper that's handmade in India. I think it's called khadi paper. Um,
Well, why is that?
and
Why do
I
you use
just love that paper.
Uh-huh.
I love the feel of it. It's really, really nice.
Yeah.
It's kind of expensive,
Yeah.
but um, uh, yeah. So it has rough surface. So even if you use a lot of ink, there's textures
Yeah.
that come through.
I mean, I guess if you're going to be moving your hand back and forth across a piece of paper for 8, 12, 15 hours, you
Yeah,
might want to like
yeah,
the texture.
yeah, yeah. You want to treat yourself.
Mhm. I like.
um, at first, I was using just regular bristle board, but it wasn't fun for me. It was just so smooth, and I just wanted a little more texture. And then I found this paper, khadi paper,
Okay.
and it's really nice. So I print out my pencils and put it on top of a light box, and then put the nice paper on top of it, and I just ink.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, there was when you showed us the color piece, you said something there about digital.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
where's the digital in that process? Are you doing the pencil stage in digital or?
yes. Yeah. All
I
the
see. Okay,
pencils
now
are
I understand.
digital. Yeah.
So you're doing thumbnails on paper,
Yes.
you're doing your pencils on digital, and then you print it out and light box it and ink on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. That's an interesting process.
Yeah. I guess I go from paper to digital to paper
Paper.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's cool. That
Yeah.
that is. I mean, I can see why it looks as unique as it does. And that's an interesting technique. I don't know that I've heard that one before.
Oh,
I
really?
love
Oh,
interviewing
interesting.
cartoonists because
Yeah.
everybody does it in a different way,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they're all right, So it's a thing I kind of love. Um, was I guess my question is why do you do the digital step?
I used to do everything on paper, but I hate erasing things.
Hmm.
So I think that's why I started using the light box too.
Okay.
I don't have to erase it because I'm just tracing um, the lines on another sheet of paper.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, and when you're doing the pencils, you have to erase a lot, and that the Photoshop makes it really easy.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I love that. Is there another question, Ben? Or William Me, could you talk more about the triplets or groups of more than 3 that appear in the book?
Oh, the triplets, the Peanutbutter Sisters.
I believe that's what he's referring to. Yeah.
Yeah, so the Peanutbutter Sisters, their last name is Peanut Butter, and the oldest one is called Mississippi, or M. The second oldest is Alabama, or Bammy, and the youngest one is Georgia, or Georgie. And their father was an immigrant. I imagining him to be coming from somewhere in the Caribbean. Um, and he thought he'll come up with a very American name for the family. So he changed their last name to Peanut Butter, and then used the name of the state for the girls. And they are uh, they're on their own. They're business women, and yeah, they each have strength. So the youngest Georgie is very organized, so she's in charge of the money, and she does the store keeping
Mm-hmm.
stuff online on
Mm-hmm.
eBay. And Bammy is the one who can read the wind. So it's because of her that they get to travel on hurricane and do all the fun stuff.
Right.
So, and she doesn't speak much, and she's a great listener.
Yeah.
So everyone loves Bammy. And M has a ton of energy. She's like a leader of the group.
Yeah. Well, your original design for the characters is very different, right? Because they have sort of flowing hair there, and then here they've got this sort of the distinctive. One has one bun, one has two, one has three.
Yeah.
How did that process get developed?
I actually can't remember. I think at first they all look the same. I think, and but it was okay when I was just drawing like a one-page comic of them or just making prints of them, but it didn't work when I started making a story because you can't really tell who's who if they all look the same. So I had to differentiate them, and I think I just came up with a 1, 2, 3 buns one day.
One of the things I was always told that people are taught in comics is that you want to find a way for your characters to have to be distinct in silhouette. That's one of the best things when you're designing a character is that even without seeing the individual lines that make up the character's face or whatever, that you would be able to recognize them from the shape of their hair or their body. Tintin might be a good example. Astro Boy might be a good example. Very clear who the characters are just from that. And I think you kind of nailed it with the sisters here.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun drawing them. Yeah.
So that was you got a grant to do this originally?
Yes, just the Peanutbutter Sisters story from Short Run Seattle. And they let me use their screen printing shop to cover. So it was very nice. And that was 2019 at the end of 2019.
And then the rest of the stories in the book?
The rest of the stories in the book, one story, Tommy Tabata, I got a mini grant from Mice.
Okay.
And so I made a mini comic out of that as well. But all the other things are new or like they're just in the book.
Interesting. Yeah, I really liked the Tammy Tabata story. I thought that one was very interesting. Just because it really it felt of time and place. And who these characters are at that moment. I don't know. It felt pretty sincere to me.
I had a studio space that I shared with my friends in Brooklyn, and that's where the story is set. So I lived in Queens, and I was commuting to Brooklyn every day, and I would usually walk or run, sometimes bike. So I got to know the area really intimately, and I don't think it's a very popular area in New York City. I don't think people come from out of town to visit that industrial part of the city.
That's certainly true.
Yeah. So I wanted to make a story and show it to more people.
Yeah.
Because there's a in a weird way we all loved that place, although it was so dusty and noisy and dangerous and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you did a really good job of making it come to life. The next story in the book is Living Things, which is the race. Where did the initial idea for that come from?
That I really wanted to go to Joshua Tree National Park. And I wanted to make it a work trip. so that I can write it off on my taxes. So that's where it started. So I thought, okay, so I'm expensing everything out, so I have to make something out of it. But it turned out to be a really fun story to draw. It's kind of like a sci-fi, maybe my first sci-fi story that's set in
Yeah,
the
no,
future.
I really liked the fantastic creatures in it too. I thought that was, clever and charming. That and the rest of these were done for the book. So how did the book come along?
So after finishing the Peanutbutter Sisters, um, I already had all these ideas for other stories, and I felt like they kind of belonged together. Um, I I'm from Japan, living in America. I wanted to all these stories are inspired by me living in America.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as an immigrant, I think, and I feel like making these stories kind of helped me become more American in my own way. Um, so so it all takes place in an American landscape, and I felt like they belong together, and I started dreaming of all these stories becoming a book.
Mm-hmm. And so, and how did it end up at Drawn and Quarterly? Did you pitch it? Did they see your work and come to you? Like, what was the process there?
Oh no, I pitched it. For my first book, Nori, I sent them an email.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I looked at their website, their FAQ, and they have a pretty um, clear submission guidelines
Uh-huh.
there. So I just followed the guidelines, emailed them, and that's how it happened. For the Peanutbutter Sisters, I already knew who to talk to, so I
Sure.
just
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, I emailed Peggy and
Yeah.
yeah.
With the first book, then when you were just putting together just a general submission, how long did it take them to get back to you from like when you submitted?
It was really quick, surprisingly. Maybe that day or like it felt like a few hours
Really?
afterwards.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So I was really surprised. But yeah.
That's actually kind of incredible because I think in a lot of cases, those submission things they're called at publishers like at Marvel and DC, they call the submissions from people the slush pile, and they usually like assign an intern to go look through the slush pile, and maybe find
Oh
things,
wow, yeah.
so that they got back to you within hours or at least a day is pretty amazing.
Yeah. I think they look through everything, which is incredible. And I thought that was the first time I submit to them, but it was actually the second time.
Okay.
So the first time I didn't hear back from them.
Oh,
So
interesting. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So
So they're fast to get back to you if they want to publish it then.
maybe, yeah.
Very good. And so when you went to Peggy with the idea for the second book, was there any back and forth there? Or did you just go, I want to do this and I've already drawn, 2 of the 5, 6 stories, and she just went, sounds great, do it? Or did you have
Yes.
to sort of pitch it specifically?
I usually put together like a pitch
Mm-hmm.
package
Mm-hmm.
with like a summary and
Mm-hmm.
all the finished pages.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent everything, and it was a while ago, but I feel like it was like she was like, yeah, great. let's let's do this. I was really grateful for that because some of the stories are really unusual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were they fully formed in your head as you were pitching it, or were they still gestational?
The stories, you mean? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
um
I mean, obviously, Peanutbutter Sisters was
yeah,
drawn.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Yeah.
um I had all the story, like the synopsis of all the stories.
Mhm.
So I knew what the stories were about. I didn't have all the details figured
Mhm.
out, but I knew how it will um begin and
Mhm.
end pretty much.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What's the editorial process like for your work? Do you get notes back? Are they more laissez-faire about just sort of, whatever you do, you're a cartoonist, you're great, or
Yeah.
is it like, if you change this, you would make it a better story?
No, they're kind of, they let me do whatever
Okay.
I want. At first I was expecting more, edits and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, but yeah, it's great. They I basically send them finished comic,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course there are grammar mistakes and
Right.
whatnot, so they fix that.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. So you send them
Yeah,
finished comics, like you're not sending them the thumbnails at that point. You're
no.
just, wow, that's really interesting. Do you have someone like a friend or something who reads your comics while you're still in process to give you feedback, or is it purely yourself?
So sometimes I do for the Peanutbutter Sisters. So part of the award from Short Run was I got a mentor,
Mm-hmm.
Glynis
Mm-hmm.
Fox. She's an amazing cartoonist, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I got to have her get her feedback. I think she read my rough sketches
Okay.
and gave me some suggestions, which were really helpful.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Do you feel like that would be helpful for all the things that you do, or I?
Yes, I ideally, but all my friends are pretty busy, so I feel bad. uh, I sometimes do, but yeah.
Yeah.
And if I spend enough time with the characters,
Uh-huh.
thinking about the story, I usually
Uh-huh.
figure it out. So
Uh-huh.
yeah.
So before you start writing a script or drawing thumbnails, how much time do you sort of live in your head with the characters? Is it
Oh,
weeks? Is it months? Years?
months,
Months. Okay. Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Peanutbutter Sisters were really long, but usually a couple months,
Okay.
maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, so I just let them do their thing in my head, stare into space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my studio mate one time got really worried, and when I was just staring into space, he was like, "Rumi, are you okay?" um, so yeah, it looks weird, but yeah, I just sit and like take a nap or
Yeah.
zone out
No,
and see
quite
what
quite
happens.
often, quite often, zoning out is the font of creativity. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um. And so then doing the thumbnail. So like once you've been ruminating and you feel like you finally have your story, you start scripting at that point.
Yes. I do a lot of brainstorming, like all the scribbles, what you just saw,
Yeah.
in a notebook,
Yeah.
sketching, writing, and then finally, when I feel like I have the whole story, I move on to scripting.
Uh-huh.
And that I usually type it out so that I can print it out and have it right next to me when I'm thumbnailing.
Okay. And is the length of your script sort of roughly the number of pages that you've drawn? Something like that? Because I assume you don't have to write yourself like a long, here's what it looks like, and here, because in your head.
Yeah. It's pretty short. Just a few pages. Well, especially for the short stories, just several pages long. And it's usually too long, so I have to make it shorter because the dialogue don't fit. And
sure. How long does that process take? Your scripting?
That is pretty quick. Thumbnailing is the long part because I have to visualize it, but the scripting is pretty fast. I don't know, maybe like a week. Not working every day all the time, just here and there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the thumbnailing?
Thumbnailing can take like 2 weeks or more.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's never just 1 week, I think.
But so it sounds like you're probably doing, when you're thumbnailing, you're probably thumbnailing out more than 1 page a day at that kind of a pace, though.
Yes, yeah. But like I said, most of my time is spent staring into
Sure. Yeah. I understand. And then the penciling stage, how long does that take?
Penciling, so once I have the thumbnails, I think I can pencil 2 to 3 pages a day. I'm pretty slow.
Okay. That's speedy, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I always wish I was faster, but yeah. So I just do rough sketches and then go over them several times to make it tighter, and then I want it to be perfect so that inking can be fun. I don't have to think about anything. I don't have to fix anything when I'm inking. I can just enjoy inking. So I make the pencils really, really tight.
Yeah, and at that penciling stage, you're doing the lettering as well at that point.
Yeah, lettering, I'm just typing. Yeah.
Okay. And then once you get into the inking, how long does that take? Because it's an easier, fun process. Does it go faster, or do you live with it longer?
I usually do 2 pages a day, 2 to 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So start to finish, how long would you say?
Oh wow. So 2019, I made the Peanutbutter Sisters, and then last year in June, I finished everything, I think.
Okay. All
so
right.
That was 2021.
Yeah.
Almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Fair
amount of that's just staring into space, though.
Yes, exactly. With my feet up.
Oh, I love it. And so would you say then that the inking is your favorite stage?
Yeah.
That's
the fun part. Yeah, I get to touch the nice paper. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Again, I've heard every stage of that. I know a couple people were like, no, inking's just mechanical. It's purely mechanical.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah, everyone's different.
Everyone's different.
Yeah. I love the work of Michael Cho, Shoplifters, the 2-tone beautiful comic. So when he was at, I think, Brooklyn Book Festival, I got his book and had it signed and asked him how he did the two colors. And he told me he inks one side of the paper and then flips it over on a light box and then inks the second
Interesting.
side and then put everything together in Photoshop. And I was like, that's great. I'm going to steal that. And that's how I did Nori.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's cool.
but I love talking to other people.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I mean, everybody has a completely different process, and that I just think that's neat. You know, yeah. I mean, I've talked to people who do all of the work in thumbnailing, so that the rest of the steps are just kind of mechanical after that. And then there's people who are the opposite. I was just talking to Anneli Furmark a couple months ago. Walk Me to the Corner is her book, and she says, and I loved this. She actually colors the page first before she draws anything. She lays down the watercolor of what the color palette of the page will be, and then she just starts drawing on top of that with no plan. She has no plan what she's going to draw. She just starts to draw and sees what happens. And I'm like, doesn't that mean you throw out a bunch of stuff? And she's like, yeah, I throw out a good amount, you know. But that's normal for her. That's her process, you know. It's like making art and then throwing it away.
That's really cool. I might try that to see how what that's like. Yeah. Wow.
It's just a matter of trusting yourself, I suppose.
Yes. Yeah.
So now that you have 2 books under your belt, do you feel more confident in your ability to make comics and do things like that? Is it getting easier? Is it getting easier or is it getting harder because you have to top yourself?
I feel like it's kind of the same each time. The beginning of the book, beginning of the story is hard. I don't know the characters yet. I don't know where they're going, who they are, and everything. So each time I feel like it's the first time. But I guess I know that if I stick to it, I can do it because I already did it a couple times. So maybe that's the different thing.
Very good.
Yeah.
Are you already working on your next book, or are you still contemplating? Or
yes, yeah. I'm starting to write. And brainstorm a couple stories.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it going to be another short story collection? Is that the
no? I'm planning a graphic novel.
Okay.
But we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How far into the process are you at this point?
I'm writing.
Okay. So you're past the staring in space phase.
Yes, a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but
right.
I'm trying to work on 2 stories at the same time. I don't know how that's gonna work out, but so one I finished. I'm writing, so it's further along, but the other one I'm just brainstorming. And it helps a lot to walk around. So there's a lot of hiking trails in Utah. So
nice.
Yeah.
Are both of these proposed books graphic novels?
Yes, hopefully, yeah.
And it might be a little early in the process for you to answer this question in a meaningful way, but are you finding challenges between doing these shorter stories and then a longer form work?
Yeah, longer form is harder for me, I feel like. But I try to break it into chapters so that each chapter is like a short story.
Okay.
So it's manageable.
Yeah. Do you have an outline for what each chapter is supposed to be at this point already?
Yeah. So
okay.
I wrote like the first draft, and there are there's like chapter titles. So when I'm inside a chapter, I don't have to think about the other chapters.
Sure. Makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense.
Yeah.
If things go ideally, when would we see this?
I'm not sure yet. It's a little too early, I
A
think.
little too early. Okay. All right.
Yeah. But that one is going to be for kids.
Okay.
But I also want to make something more grown up as well.
Yeah.
That's why I have kind of like two stories.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
have you formally pitched these to a publisher yet, or are you still waiting until you're a little further along?
The kids graphic novel one, I have a publisher that I met at a festival a few years ago. So we'll be working together on that. For the other one, I'm still just brainstorming a lot.
Still early
So
enough. I understand.
yeah, there's
No, I
not
understand.
much to pitch yet, actually. But yeah, I have a lot of ideas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope we see it soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So we can wrap it up. I always end with the same. I start with the same question. I also always end with the same question. And your answer on this may really be unique because you didn't really start this until you were 30. We have this is a series of interviews. You're probably somewhere like number 250, something like that. And so we have a lot of people who watch these, who want to be cartoonists themselves, who want to make their own comics. And one of the things I often hear is, I want to do this, but I don't know where to start or how to start or what I should do. So if you were going to give a piece of advice to a fledgling cartoonist, a nascent cartoonist, what might that be? Whether it's craft, whether it's psychological, whether it's emotional, whether it's spiritual, kind of anywhere in there, what would be the thing that you would give to a new creator?
Yeah, just make something and show it to people. I think a lot of people make comics, but they never show it. I didn't know what I was doing, but with the first comic that I printed, I just brought it over to a bookstore and just gave it out. Nothing happened, but I think eventually it was important that people see my stories.
Sure.
Because otherwise no one will know that you want to make comics.
Sure.
So yeah, just show it to the world.
Just show it to the world. I love it. I think that's a fantastic answer. Well, very good. I really want to thank you for taking the time and being with us here tonight and talking to us about comics. I really appreciate it. And I hope you had just a little bit of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Cool. Before we go, if Ben put me on a 1, if you wouldn't mind, I just want to say for the little bit of housekeeping here, the next book that we've got the August shows, the Kids Club is The Girl and the Glim. This is a really fun and kind of beautiful pastel watercolor book. That's the kids' book this month. And then next month's Adult Club will be What's the Furthest Place from Here? By Tyler Boss and Matt Rosenberg. And I expect that will be quite a fun conversation because we'll probably talk a lot about business and making comics that way too. Because Rosenberg and I should joust a little bit. I think it'll be fun. It'll be a good joust. I want to thank my staff for being my staff and giving me the chance to sit here and talk about comics like this because they run the store. So Zoe and Kat and Katie, thank you so much for being you. I want to thank Jordan for running the show behind the scenes, and I want to thank Ben for doing all the camera work and all that fun stuff. And I want to thank all of you members because we couldn't do this without you. And speaking of people we couldn't do it without, I want to thank RUMI and all of the other cartoonists out there, because we wouldn't have books to make to sell you and to tell you that are good unless they're making them roomy. So really, thank you again so much for being a part.
Oh, thank you so much, Brian. Thank you for doing what you do.
Right.
I hope to visit the store someday.
Oh, please let us know if you're on your way, and we'll take care of you. Yeah, we absolutely will.
Yeah,
for sure.
And thanks to everyone.
Yeah, very good. Okay, we'll talk to you next month. Thank you for watching this episode of the Graphic Novel of the Month Club. If you enjoyed what you were watching, please subscribe and hit that bell up in the top corner. If you enjoyed the books that we're talking about and the creators that we're talking to, every month we pick a brand new book. The staff votes on it. It's a program that helps keep our store alive, and we'd love to have you as a member. You'll get a new book every month. Just follow that URL at the bottom of the screen.